Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Studio Live Today podcast. This week, tips for writing captivating lyrics. Yeah, how do you take your lyric writing to the next level when you're a songwriter, regardless of the style? Should you use poems? Do you need to rhyme? Do you do the music first or the lyrics first? We're going to cover all of that. And I am joined by a very special guest on this week's podcast who will be with me in just a little while. If you're watching the replay on the YouTube channel here, check the timestamps in the description down below. If you're listening on the audio version, don't worry, we love you just as much. You can check out the audio version by searching for Studio Live Today on your podcatcher of choice. And if you are watching the video version, a thumbs up is always appreciated. Head over to studiolivetoday.com for all of your Studio Live Today goodness. That's where I share all of my tutorials and all of the other ways that you can interact and engage with me and the wonderful community we have here at Studio Live Today. So as I mentioned, this is a live recording, which means it's a little bit different than what we usually do when I pre-record and it's just me ranting. I get to have a special guest on board and we get to talk and chat, and it means I don't have to do all the talking and all of the work as well. If you'd like to join me live for when I do these sort of events, studiolivetoday.com/live. That'll actually take you to the latest playlist and you can check out all of the live shows we do around here. Because we're live, I'm going to say a quick hello to the folks who are here live, who are good enough for being here. That includes our moderator, Thomas Christ, the wonderful Crow on a Wire, Al Davis Music. We've got Mark Bro here, Hugh Caldwell, Allegratilla, Still Illa. That rhymes. Maybe someone should write a song about Allegratilla and Still Illa. Hello to Skeeter Melody, g'day Aaron or Claire, the lovely Jenny Jolivet, and Clayton Von Kluge is here. Now, hello Paul O'Farrell and Mars Capone as well. Now, we are interactive. So if you do happen to be here live, you can leave a question. And the easiest way to do that is to put a big fatty old Q in front of your question. If you put a Q in front of your question, I'll be able to see your question and if not answer it, at least attempt to answer your questions. So if you've got questions about songwriting, about lyric writing, about anything related to music production, all you need to do is put that Q in front of your question, and myself or the perfectly timed guest on this week's show will be able to help potentially answer your questions. So without any further ado, let's bring her on. It is the one, it is the only, it is Jade Starr. What's going on, Jade?
Hi, Pete. Long time no see.
Yes, for those that aren't listening or watching live, I was just on Jade's show. We chatted about music distribution for a good 2 hours, and if anything, we still had things to say and questions to answer. So it is a great topic and a great content as well. But in this one, we're talking lyrics. Before we dive into talking about lyrics, something I know you've written thousands, if not tens of thousands of lyrics in your time, Jade. For the 1% of people that happen to know who I am and what I do and don't know who you are and what you do, why don't you give us a quick introduction?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jade Starr. I am a musician. I've been playing music since the age of 14 was the first band I joined. I've been writing, performing music my entire life. I've been in multitudes of bands, signed to record labels, deals, traveled all around the world playing music, and here I am these days as a YouTube content creator, teaching hopefully some of my lukewarm skills to help people possibly get a little bit better themselves, and that's where I am right now here on YouTube, and I don't get enough time to write music, which sucks. I wish I had more time to write lyrics, and do all that stuff, but it's so beautiful these days to see other people make music. That's my caper these days.
Absolutely. It's and it is great to do what we do because we both do similar sorts of things, which is around the music education space, which is helping folks create and record and release music. I focus on doing it the simplest possible way, and Jade tries to complicate it as much as possible for folks by reviewing thousands of different apps. But no, it's always good and a lot of fun to watch Jade's show every single day, pretty much. If you're a Patreon, I think you're getting that show every single day, learning about apps, learning about music creation. So it's a wonderful place to go. Just search for Jade Starr with 2 R's anywhere, or go to jadestar.com.au. Don't forget the AU, as we always say.
Yes, don't forget the AU.
Very important, that AU. We're going to kick things off with this. I've got a bunch of questions here. I'm going to throw them at Jade because, like I said, I like to not do the work and make her do the work, but I'll give my opinions as well. But the most common question I get asked about lyrics is actually one that one of our live viewers, Hugh Caldwell, has actually asked here. And it actually was the first question that I had on my list that I sent to Jade, which she can attest to. And it's, do you write the lyrics or the music first? So, Jade, if you would like to share your view on this, I'll then let you know what I think. And I'm going to do a live poll of folks here and see who writes lyrics and who writes music first most commonly. So, take it away, Jade.
Okay, so if you're listening to people who are telling you that you should do one or the other, you're doing it wrong. Because there is no right way. That is the best way to look at it. Because I have written lyrics first. I have written music first. I have written half a song and then half the lyrics, and then finished the entire song and then just been singing half the lyrics for 2 years straight and still not finished the actual lyrics to the song. And then when I've eventually gone to record it, it's like, you know what, I can't think of anything because these lyrics just say everything I need to. Now that I'm just repeating stuff. It's kind of sort of depends on exactly the mood. Like it's like what you're going to eat today, you know, it depends on how you're feeling. And if you're not feeling the lyrics when you're putting together a song and you've come up with a fantastic chord progression, it's just happening and you can't come up with lyrics, my best advice is walk away. Go do something else. Try and get some inspiration. There are songs I've written where people have written to me and gone, that song means so much to me. I was having a phone call with my friend Dylan the other night over one of my songs called Into the Sun. And he just, for years, he's been saying, you don't know how much that song means to me. And 2 nights ago on the phone, I had to tell him, I felt horrible saying, dude, that song's about nothing. I've no idea what that song is about. It's a collection of words that just sounded good. And if you ask me, I don't know. I really, but there are other songs that have spent, like Truth actually took like 3 months to write those lyrics, to actually find all the right words that fit together. And, it's the way you write lyrics too is very interesting. Some songs I have decided to make every word of each line rhyme. And then other songs, none of them rhyme at all. So, look, the correct answer is the way you're feeling when you're writing that song. Like, nobody's going to come knock on your door and go, excuse me.
It's the lyric police.
You should have written the lyrics first.
Oh, it's so true. And look, the bottom line, I started with this because it's a divisive question deliberately, because I wanted the answer to be from right up front that it depends, it doesn't matter, you do you, it's going to vary, you're going to just have to work it out for yourself. And I know, like, we could spend the next hour talking about what you can and can't and should and shouldn't do, but we could basically end it there and say, all right, you're on your own, off you go. But we'll
handball.
Continue. Yep. From some of the folks who are here live, Mark Bro says depends what comes first in my experience. Yep, hip hop usually lyrics first for Still Illa. Joe and Barry Glenn say depends which comes first to my brain. Paul O'Farrell says better together. Really, music is easier. Yep. Thomas Christ says it really does depend. I've done both ways and either can work. And SM Borthwick says about 90% of the time it's music first. And Hugh Caldwell, who asked the question, said music first. I'm terrible at writing lyrics. Well, I doubt that. I think you're probably just continuing to evolve and work on writing lyrics, which is the way most people are when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I did put in the poll. Someone immediately complained, which I knew would be the case. You need a "it depends" in the poll, and I'm like, nah. I'm gonna make you choose
Nah,
what you
nah.
do the most, just to be divisive, because that's how we like to roll around here. For those that are here live, thank you. You can make donations to the channel like Robert Redmond's Clip channel has just done. So thank you, Robert Redmond. I appreciate you, and that helps keep the lights on around here. And thank you kindly for being here. Let's move on from that and go straight into one of the most controversial topics of all right now. Should you consider using AI to help you write lyrics, Jade? Have you used AI, bit of chat GPT lyric writing goodness? And what's your thoughts and opinions on getting some help from our old artificial intelligence friends?
Why not? If you have tools that you can use them. Here's the thing: you can't write a song completely using ChatGPT. I challenge anybody to do it without it repeating itself 8 times. Right? And it's so easy to spot AI these days. ChatGPT. I've seen people do apologies with ChatGPT, and it's like, that's the dead giveaway, because it's like, I'm really sorry for doing this, but and then 2 sentences later it just repeats the same thing in a different form of words. And that's what ChatGPT is really good at, restating the same thing. If you're going to get a good result from something like ChatGPT, you have to iterate it. You actually have to input stuff, because I don't want to spoil the illusion here, but AI doesn't have a brain. You are in control of it, and to get the best results, you have to go in and take sections of it and get it to expand and say, can you break this down further for me? Can you focus on these words and do all that kind of stuff? So you can write a complete song that is coherent and makes sense, but you are going to have to work at it. So this puts you in the position of, could I have just done it myself? Because I've spent probably the same amount of time nitpicking and forcing it to try and do these things that I want. And if you go back and look at your prompts that you're putting in to get this result, you are actually writing the lyrics for it. And it's just spitting out. It's like going to a psychologist, really. People who go to a psychologist, they think there's going to be a point, Pete, at the end of a year, and the psychologist goes, well, thanks for coming to see me for a year. Now here's the magic answer. And guess what? There is no magic answer. From day one, the psychologist takes your information, the things that they ask you, and then they reiterate those words back to you until you hear them and you understand what your own problems are. And then that's when you wake up and listen. And that's the same way that ChatGPT works. You put in a prompt, it gives you what it thinks you want, and then you have to try and push further to get it to say exactly what you want, which you could have just done writing it out yourself. So, but look, it is an advantage. So why not use it and get ideas from it? Anything that you can get ideas, especially when, let's be honest, we all from time to time struggle with pulling ideas out of our ass. The world is so complex. There's so much going on. Got to pay your bills, all this stuff. It's really hard to come up with ideas. So why not use the tools that we have to get ideas and work on it from there? I don't think it's a bad thing. It's definitely not going to take over the world. In fact, if anything, it's just going to get more racist and tell more lies, because we are the ones in control of it, and we're a pack of idiots.
Yeah, human-led automation is what I call it, especially if I'm talking to an AI bro. I just say, artificial intelligence, you mean a human-led automation because we're programming robots to do our bidding? Yeah, that's what it is, which kind of annoys them a bit. Hugh Corbell says here, David Bowie used to cut sentences from magazines and newspapers for inspiration, and I think that's the key. It's not about getting it to do it for you, but the best thing that I've done is said to ChatGPT, write me 10 lines that could start a song about puppies.
Yes.
And then it just gives you a bunch of ideas, and then you choose one of them, and then you go, okay, give me some good rhyming words for puppy that I could use in a punk rock song. Like you can use it as just like you would a songwriting partner. It just happens to be a robot. That's the sort of thing you can do. If you say, do it all for me, that's a different story, and I don't think that's going to work for you.
It's like Google searches really too. It really surprises me too in this day and age. There are still a massive percentage of people who don't know how to search for the things that they need in a Google search. They just put one word in or something. It's like, no. You can hone in on exactly what you want if you know what you're doing, which leads to things like people messaging me going, how do I do this thing? And it's like, have you typed this in Google? Have you looked for in Google? And they go, yeah, but I'm not getting the answers. It's like, what are you typing in there? Like, people are not direct in what they're looking for. And it's the same thing with the Chat GPT. It's not about just expecting it to do what you to just come up with ideas for you. You have to understand prompting and understand the way it works. So the best thing I can say is definitely go and watch videos, not on like, hey, this thing's a real cool technology. Try and watch videos on people who are actually prompt masters and learn how to make it work for you. The problem is with that you spend so much time learning to become a prompt master, or I forget what they call it, prompt engineer these days. It's a new role. That you just could have like changed the world yourself in the time you spent learning to type in a bunch of prompts.
It's an interesting time, yeah. And yeah, look, Mascarpone makes a good point. Machine learning, so it's seeded by humans and moderated, but that's all. And yeah, that is true that it does have but it's the thing is, it's not intelligence. It's just taking data and then regurgitating and manipulating that data into new data. It's eventually going to run out. It's not going to create. Well, maybe it'll create new things, and we'll all be doomed. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out in about 20 years' time. Speaking of rhyming, we talked about rhyming a couple of times already. How important is rhyming when it comes to writing lyrics? Because at its base point, people think there once was a man from Nantucket and that everything has to rhyme from there on in. But how important is it to have a rhyming system or to use rhyming in your lyrics? Is it essential, or is it nice to have, or does it completely depend?
This whole show's is going to be, it depends, isn't it?
It depends.
You should have had Depends as your sponsor. Would have been perfect. Oh, actually, the company's called Depend. I should get it right, because that's a whole conspiracy theory we can go down. But
I thought my incontinence was at an end, but it turns out I needed a
exactly. But people thought for a long time it was Depends, but it's not. So I used to think for rap, of course, absolutely, you would have to have rhymes and stuff, because that's what they call them. That is what it is. I'm writing a rhyme. And that's where that whole, but rhyming in songs has been around forever. But there's so many songs out there that are huge and a part of our collective conscience that we hear and go, oh, that's that song. I love it so much. And they don't rhyme. So, I guess it depends on the song. I guess it depends on the emotion of the song, or what you're trying to say. Some things you're trying to say in songs don't have words that rhyme. I know there are ways these days to be able to rhyme. I use like a lot of those websites, like rhyming websites, where you just type in go to Google and just type a rhyme zone. That's one of them. And you can just go in there. Here's one of them. I can put it on my screen. Yeah, I've got technology. Rhyme zone. Look at that. And you can put in a word like banana, because that one gets done all the time. Rhymes. And look at this. Anna, banana, brana, kana. Some of these are, I don't know. Kana, jana.
Santana and banana. We're eating a banana.
Yeah. But these are really handy. We didn't have this kind of stuff when we were younger. So, and now we do. So, and you can choose like thesaurus, phrases, so you can get definitions of them, homophones, all these kind of things, similar sounds, same consonants. So there are ways you can get ideas by using things like that. I don't think it's important that if you look through my catalogue of songs, some songs, as I said, like Truth, every last word of that song rhymes exactly the same. But the chorus totally doesn't. It's where other songs I have, the words totally don't rhyme at all.
Yep.
Sometimes it depends on the technicality of the song too. Like if something's like really progressive, I tend to not rhyme because it's hard to create a pattern of rhymes in something that's quite odd timing and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess it depends on how you're feeling.
Yeah, and I guess the crux of it, and the reason I wanted to mention it is that you don't have to. And that's probably something that a lot of people don't think about. They get into songwriting, and maybe, and this will relate to the next thing we'll talk about, they come from a world where maybe they've written poetry. The structure and the form and the rhyming systems is almost like a rule when it comes to poetry, even though it's not really. But with
No.
music, because you're using different sounds as well, you can often substitute some of your lyrics for sounds, for instruments and things. Some of the best songs have had, like you get to the part of the lyric and then just a little guitar bit comes in and it creates that space. So, yeah, and one other thing I wanted to mention is that there's kind of two different types of rhyming as well. That there's perfect rhymes, which are like the limerick style ones, where, like you
Yep.
say, they end with the same sound. There's also slant rhymes, where there's rhymes that come within the phrase. So you'll often find that with a lot of songs that you can not only just rhyme the end, but you can rhyme sort of parts earlier in it, and you'll hear that in a lot of music these days as well, where they'll, especially rap music. I guess rap music, like you say, is where rhyme, hip hop and rap music has been a lot of rhyming, and you can use it if you want to, but you don't have to.
And rap's
Which will be the
changed
answer.
too with rhyming over time. It's changed because sometimes the rhymes aren't on the beat as well, where they'll go over the beat and it's a rhyme, but it's not rhyming where you would think it would rhyme. So
Yep.
it's fascinating the way people hear, because phrasing is another part of lyrics that like just on this. Like I was making a song with one of these AI song things last night and using Brad's lyrics. And every time I put in these lyrics, it kept coming out with these phrases that just weren't right. But so I had to like phonetically start breaking it down so it would understand the phrasing I wanted. So again, I'm having to work for the AI and do all the thinking for it. But it worked. Like
Yep,
it
you got
took
there.
time. So phrasing is huge with rhyming as well. And it doesn't always have to be exactly the stinky old limericks, that we're
Exactly.
used to.
Yeah. Da 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 da. Thank you to for those that are here live would have seen that Pookie Ann has just gifted 5 memberships to the Studio Live Today community. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. If you want to become a member, you can do so and become a member of Jade's community as well. Jade's is half price. Jade, you get twice the value with Jade, and it's half the price. So it's worth checking out. And thank you again for your support there. Are you a poet, Jade? Did you write poetry? Were you an angsty
sure
teenager like I was, writing all the poetry? And how has that influenced your songwriting? Do you still write poems? Do you write lyrics before you've got any music to them and turn poems into songs? What's your experience been with that?
Oh, Pete, I fell down the rabbit hole of Jim Morrison. I thought I thought I was him. I didn't shower. I wore vinyl pants. I think it was more just to get women, and it worked. But yeah, I started. Yeah, I used to read poetry when I was at school. I used to borrow a lot of poetry books and read poetry. And there was a period. I've gone through so many weird phases in my life. I used to go and sit out under a tree with poetry books and read and drink port. There's been so many phases of my ridiculous life where I thought I was a poet at some stage and an actor and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, poetry is important, I think, because I think poetry is really cool because it can help you with more abstract writing. I mean, I liked more abstract poetry because it challenged you to write more lyrics that weren't so straight cut, like, I love you, baby, ooh, and you could write stuff that had multiple meanings. I really like lyrics like that. Sometimes you want to write lyrics where they're direct and you want to get a message through, but sometimes you want to write stuff that is so broad that people can walk away taking something completely different. And poetry really helps you with that stuff, with just words that you wouldn't even think of putting together. So I think poetry is really important. In fact, I think any form of media helps with lyrics, consuming as much as you can. Probably not prawn, but I say at least I said it
Then
right.
you will get that "Ooh, baby, baby, baby" song. But that's how we got it. That's
Oh,
how
baby,
Bieber wrote
baby.
that.
Exactly.
Baby,
It was
baby, baby. Ooh.
But, hey, talking to lyrics, something you won't get from poetry is yeah and ooh and ah, because
There you go.
I
Great point.
remember just a short story on writing music. My old band, if you go back and listen to Despise, there's one particular demo we did where nearly every song had the word or me singing, yeah, yeah. And somebody pointed out to me one day and went, you say yeah a lot on this demo. And I was like, oh my God, I really do. Is that, is it, because it wasn't a lack of like lyrics. It's just, when I look back at it now, it was just me being a singer and wanting to put my noise all over everything I possibly could. It's just saturating the song. Hey, look at me again. I'm the singer, everybody. So, yeah, be wary of yes and oohs and ahs because maybe you don't need to put them all in the same place in songs and fill the gaps all the time. But I'm a big fan of poetry. I think people should read poetry, study old poetry, look at new poetry, because there's a wealth of wonderful artists out there who have written some beautiful things and may inspire you.
And that's the key. Yeah, we'll talk about sort of generating ideas and being inspired and how you get those ideas for the lyric writing process. But that's actually, and this is why it's great having you or talking to other people about these sort of topics, is that that's something I hadn't thought of, is that the lyric writing process is different from the singing process. And sometimes it's not till you sing your lyrics that you add in new words or you change words or words don't kind of feel right or sound right, or you put in some oohs and ahs and yes and whatever. And that's kind of the coolest thing. I've been working on the lyrics of a lot of my songs to put them onto DistroKid at the moment, and the amount of times I just have to write whoa, and the actual line is whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, how do I write this? I just put whoa, oh, 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 oh. Like, it's weird. A lot of them were not actually words; they're just kind of sounds, which is an interesting thing. You
Were
talked
you a
about
poet? Can I ask you? Were you a
yeah,
poet, Pete?
sort of. I think I liked writing as a kid. I did want to be a journalist actually when I was a kid, when I was in high school, and then I got nerdy and geeky and into computers and wanted to be a computer engineer. Turns out I'm not smart enough to do either of those, so I do this now. But yeah, when I wanted to be a journalist, I did like writing. And I liked prose probably more than poetry. So, and I like doing things like free writing, which is kind of more how I generate my ideas. So. I'll often, like in the past and yeah, even today, I'll just sit down and write out paragraphs of a concept or a topic or the thoughts that I'm having, and then it will be pulling out those words and phrases and trying to turn that in. So I guess I don't so much write poetry, but I write prose that I then pick and choose lines or themes or words that I really like from that prose, and then put that into the lyrics of a song. So yeah, but yeah, back in my teenage angst days, I'm sure I wrote like love poems to the girls that I had crushes on and whatnot that never saw the light of day. I'll probably find an embarrassing drawer somewhere one day with all these crumpled up bits of notepaper.
Content, Pete, content. Oh, I was a journalist too. Just talking on that, I got into journalism in 2007. I'd never done it in my life. I was always a writer at school. I loved writing theses and stuff like that. I just love writing. I do love writing fantasy and real stuff and whatever. And I fell into journalism because there was a online publication in Sydney that were looking for volunteer writers, and it was LGBT kind of thing, and I wanted to have a voice, so I started submitting stuff. That really changed the way I write lyrics. I think since doing that, my writing of lyrics has become much more concise and much deeper and more personable and stuff, because the beautiful thing about getting into even volunteering as a journalist, let me tell you, folks, volunteering for many things will help you not only be a kinder person in life, no matter what, giving your time for free, but you get a lot out of it. And the best thing I got out of it was having an editor who would take my shit that I would send him and go, wow, I love the way you write. Your writing is, but there's the thing that you're not good at is punctuation and all this kind of stuff. And to have an editor go through that and keep your flair and your individual style that makes you interesting, really, and he'd send that back. It really helped me understand better ways to write. So these kind of things you should get into, try,
Absolutely.
Even if you're not sending it into a publication.
Yep,
Just try
totally.
writing articles and things. It's very fascinating to see how you
Yeah.
write and what your style is.
And look, and even if you don't, like we've mentioned this many times before, but there's lots of great forums and groups where you can actually share this, and not being scared of sharing your stuff is probably a good thing to start with. We just did a show on your channel, Jade, and that was what we were going to talk about: not being scared to release your music and have people steal it. So I think like
Oh
being
yeah,
able to
yeah,
share your writing with other people and getting their feedback and being open to feedback and constructive feedback, because none of us are going to get it perfectly. And I've done a lot of songwriting recently live on the channel, which people are like, "You're crazy. People are going to steal your ideas," or "You're crazy. You're
nah.
exposing your soul to people." And what if they come back at you because they've suggested you use the word crazy instead of baby to rhyme? And I'm like, no, most people just want to help with the creative process. And yeah, even if you don't have a formal sort of editor relationship, sharing your stuff online in a group of trusted people is a really great way to actually get some ideas there. Mars Capone, not surprisingly, is similar to me. I get more ideas and sticky words from novels and nonfiction than poetry personally. Yeah, do that. Like when you're consuming media, any sort of media, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, words, music, movies, TV, YouTube. Yeah, just make sure you're noting if something interesting comes up, capture it somewhere. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a moment. You mentioned space, Jade, to let your lyrics breathe and actually have some space in there. How do you make sure that you're not overdoing it and that you don't have too many words and are sort of pushing too hard and creating a little bit of that space in your lyrics? Any tips that you've learnt over the years around that?
Don't be afraid to keep changing stuff, because you know what, you're going to change stuff anyway, right? Even after you release a song. Now, maybe not so much these days, because a lot of people release music these days and don't perform live very much, because this internet space has changed a lot of things. But back in the day, as a performing artist, and the biggest bands in the world do this. Metallica, anyone. You've gone and seen a band. They release a song. You go see them live. See you later, Mr. Smith. You go and see them live, and you're like, wow, they do this. They do this live now like this, and that becomes the way they do the song, because it turns out after you've recorded a song, this is an easier way to do it. So your songs do change over time the more you play them as well. So that's a natural thing that happens because you find it easier to do that. But space is important. And look, this is just overall songwriting. I've told this on my channel many times. When I was recording my Dread Circus Gender Optimized album, I had a few little sticks in the fire how I was going to release this album. One way, I had signed up, I'd applied for a grant from the government because I was trans, and some of the band members were Indigenous, so we tried to get a grant to see if they would give us, what was it, 8 grand. And at the same time, I went and spent money to go into a studio with an engineer. I spent a bunch of money to play him all my songs, not to get him to record them, because that would have cost thousands of dollars. But hopefully, if I got the grant, maybe I could use him. But at the same time, if we didn't get the grant, I'd sat down with this producer to find out what I was doing wrong. And the first thing he said about my music, and it changed my life, it was something I didn't realize I'd been doing for a long time, and that was putting too much crap in there. Filling
Yep.
the void all the time, overdoing instruments, too many vocal parts. Let this part breathe. It's a verse. Pull everything out. Let it sit. Let the bass and the drums carry the tune while you've got room for the vocal. You don't have to put a yeah in here all the time. And he fully just was so harsh and told me, you're just overcrowding things. You're overcomplicating things. And I get why, because you're a polished musician. You've worked really hard to where you are, and you're trying to constantly show people how good you are. And you don't need to do that, right?
Yep.
Keep it simple and let the simple things shine through. It was like seeing a psychologist. It's like, well, I can see what you're doing. You're overselling yourself because you feel like you need people to understand all the training you've had, all the schooling you've had with music. And in every song, you're trying to tell everybody, here's a song, but trust me, I'm really good, I promise you. And that's not what you want to be doing with a song. You want to be like conveying the message of the song and having dynamics and pulling back. So it is very important to understand space and to be critical of yourself and pull things out when you are mixing stuff down. It's okay to overcrowd when you're recording, but when
Yep.
you pull this stuff out at the end, that's where the magic happens. It's not all about the EQ and compression. It's how able you are to be critical enough to take out the stuff that you may think makes the song, but it gives the song room to breathe so people can actually enjoy it and not be overwhelmed by you going, look at how good I am. It's
So
important.
true. I was doing some research and watching a video. I'm sorry I can't reference it because I watched a bunch of lyric writing videos in the last sort of 2 days preparing. But someone mentioned that the biggest challenge a band has is that when you get groups of musicians together, the drummer's going to over drum, the guitarist's going to over guitar, the bass player's going to overplay the bass, and the singer is definitely going to over sing it. And if you put all that together, you just get this messy cacophony of sound that is not good for anyone. Sometimes the bass player just has to sit back on the root note for a couple of minutes and just relax. Sometimes the drummer can just get up on the hi-hat and doesn't have to be hitting tom fills every second phrase. And sometimes the singer could just step away from the microphone and let the band play. And I think it's important with your lyrics to think about that as well, that you don't have to feel every beat and every single hit, which is a very nice segue into the next thing I want to talk about, which is a method that I use for lyrics. And I know you've used it in the past for not only lyrics, but for bass parts and guitar parts. And it's the do-do-do-da-da-da method, where if you got the music first and you're trying to find lyrics to smoosh in there, to fit in there, but you don't really know what words or what phrasing you want to use for your melody, to use a do-dos and a da-da-das. Do you use that often? And how important do you think it is to not get too attached to certain words first before you've got a melody actually written out?
Do, da, da, doom, dooms, and dunts, and dunts. They're the best. Look, so much so, I was in a band called Durnt. Durnt, and it was so confusing for people. They'd go, "So what's your band called?" "Oh, Durnt," and they go, "Durnt." Well, and our comeback was always, "Durnt, Durnt, 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 Durnt." In the long run, it was kind of stupid because you had to always explain it like that. But, excuse me, the point of it was very, very real because we put so much pressure on ourselves as artists to consistently write lyrics that have meaning, and then when we aren't able to do them and pull them out of our ass, then we are terrible to ourselves, and we feel like, I'm not good at this, and so being able to write stuff like do-dos and da-das is absolutely 100% way to go. But if you're doing that, record it. Whatever you do, grab your phone, do that first. That is a great way to start songs. And you know this very well. When we were doing Songtember and I did Metheist, every song on that Metheist EP was written from me going on walks, holding my phone, going da 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 da, coming home, picking up the bass, and every single song starts with a bass track in there going da da, and I've still got all those recorded lines going da 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 da, and they're some of the best stuff I've written. So since then I definitely use the don'ts and do's and das writing lyrics. I don't tend, going back to that lyric question at the start, I don't tend to write lyrics first unless it's a poem I've written. But when I do these days write acoustic music, I normally will come up with some chords and then start going. I think melodies are far more important than lyrics. That's a hot take, I know. You can take me and drag me over hot coals, but I think melodies are very overlooked by today's music, and we're so focused on it. Used to be that lyrics were the things that were underbaked. In the 80s, it was all about melodies, man. These days, it seems like lyrics are so focused on to have so many words in there, especially modern pop music, that I don't know, the melodies are gone. And melody is just, you have to be able to have a hook. And I don't hear it as much these days. So do-dos and da-das are your key to fantastic hooks, in my opinion.
I agree. And hey, just ask Sting. He actually used to have a song called "Do Do
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 Da
do
Da
da da
Da."
da.
Think about
Yes.
Van Morrison. She used to say, what did she used to say? She didn't say anything that important, did she? La la la
No,
la 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 la
no.
la 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 la
And
la.
the cover girls.
Yep. Do
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 do.
do.
Yeah, it is so true. Yeah, what was the Beatles? She loves me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it's got more yeahs than it has any other word in that song.
Yep.
But it's a catchy, hooky melody. So, and yeah, if you ask Anthony Kiedis, he gets halfway through writing a song and just goes ning nang nong nong ning nang nong nong ning
Well,
nang.
Crazy
So,
Frog is a bit of a legend. I mean, come on, you can't talk about the Beatles, Pete, without the Crazy Frog.
weirdly, I was
Ning, ning,
doing a
ning,
music
ning,
quiz
ning,
the
ning,
other
ning.
day, and the Crazy Frog was one of the answers, and I'm like, oh god, reminded me of the Jamster Mobile Club, and just $4.99 a month for all these
What
great monophonic ringtones like this one.
what happened
Anyway.
to us?
I know it's rough. Let's move on. You mentioned it already about the importance of recording your lyric ideas, the audio
Yes.
side of your lyric ideas. Do you record the text of your lyric ideas? What happens when you're walking, like you're out on a walk and suddenly you just go, I have the best idea for a hook or the best idea for a chorus line? What's your process and how do you make sure you don't lose that cool lyric idea?
Oh yeah, just open up the voice memos app and just sing it, and that's it. I'm sure
So
if I went
simple,
through
isn't
the
it?
voice memos app after this show, I'd probably find 3 albums worth of great melodies sitting in there that I've forgotten I've recorded. Because I do it so much,
Yep.
and yeah, but also the best thing about doing that is you've got to like I'd more so do it for melodies
Yeah.
and do the melodies, and then sometimes it's words, but see, I don't use paper. This is another thing. Everything is on my phone. Everything's typed in, and now that we have voice to text, it's so easy just to open the notes and just
Yeah.
say stuff,
Talk it.
and have that stuff. And I'm sure, again, with my notes, if I like, I'm looking at my notes now, 1,273 notes in my notes on my iPad. There's a lot of shit in there that if I went through, there's some great lyrics, and just as well as the do's and does. It's important to record that stuff, definitely, because think about it. Metallica have lived off this crap. There's so many Metallica releases they've put out that are just junk recordings that they've done, and then they've put it out in a box set or some crap. Keeping all this stuff is super important because,
Yeah.
content is king these days, and Metallica have done it. So they're the worst at it. They release these tin cans full of like crap old songs that nobody wants to. What a Gene Simmons. I don't know if you remember The Vault. Did you ever see The Vault, Pete?
Oh, vaguely, yeah.
Gene
I'm not a
Simmons released
Kiss
this
guy, but, yeah.
this big actual vault that you would buy, and it was like thousands of dollars, and it had like something like 2,000 songs in it, and all of them were utter shit, all the rubbish that he'd just been recording himself, and he ended up selling
like-
it for thousands of dollars. So it's worthwhile to record all that crap because.
He's like, on this CD, it's just 80 minutes of when Paul Stanley would fart in rehearsal, and I just recorded that. I thought I'd stick it in the vault.
In the vault. Oh, that was such a great thing. You got to see the videos of it. He actually turned up to people's houses who bought the high tier, and there was videos of him like standing there in the family's house, like going. It was all staged. Oh, it's so good.
But
Gene
that's gonna
Simmons
be
is the
another
gift that
podcast.
just keeps giving.
I know. It's going to be why Gene Simmons and Kiss are the absolute masters of music marketing. That's going to be another
Absolutely.
podcast topic because, man, do they do some good things. So capture, and we've had other folks here in the live chat talking about the Notes app and the importance of using that. Basically, like everything we're talking about in this show, whatever you do, just don't do nothing. So capture it in whatever way you can. So voice recorders, your jam, use the voice recorder. If you like to write things down, if you carry a Moleskine notebook with you everywhere you go and you want to write with a fountain pen, go your hardest, but just make sure you don't lose them and that you keep them somewhere safe. And in these days, in the world of iCloud and cloud storage and Gmail, I've got to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to ever remember this, but I know that I'm going to check my email eventually. So I just email myself like a few lines of text, and then I get like a little present. When I get home, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I had that idea for that song, and it's in my email inbox. So however you do it, just make sure you actually do
You've
it.
got no excuse, really, because everything's at the touch of your fingers now. If you're not doing it, then it's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. It's entirely your fault. You're bad and you should feel bad.
In
if
the
you don't do
corner.
this. All right. So what about when I know some people were talking about this in the pre-show when I came in here, folks were already chatting about this, and it always comes up when we talk lyrics. What about when your mind is blank, when you have zero ideas, when the lyrics aren't flowing, when you don't know what to write about? What do you do, Jade? What do you do?
If I'm completely honest, I go and eat. So go and watch.
That was go and walk in the sunshine if you...
Yeah, I go for a walk in the sunshine. Just go do something that releases some endorphins. Go for a walk. Go watch a movie. Go watch some if you really need to. Like something that is a release. Do something kind for yourself. Eat something. Have a guilty feed on something. Go out. People watch. There's plenty of things you can do to get ideas, right? People watching is rad because we live in a world at the moment where since the inconvenience, everyone's brain seems to have turned to cheese. So when you go out and just watch people for 2 hours, boy, do you get some inspiration to write some songs. Ooh, people are broken, man.
I reckon just a walk around Aldi would be enough for like a whole album's worth of content.
Absolutely. Go and stand at a checkout at a supermarket and listen to the conversations people have at checkout. So they're fully just, I just had a colonoscopy. And it's like, sorry? People will give you inspiration to write. There's so many places to find inspiration. The most important thing is don't be hard on yourself. That is the worst thing you can do because there's already enough pressure in the world on how we look and the things we say and our sexual preference, our gender and all these things that people are ready to like carve you up, make you feel bad about. But if you're not feeling creative and you're not able to produce something, get something out of you, it's not everybody goes through it. Every single artist on this planet, the most, Prince, or one of the most prolific songwriters, the Beatles, they all sat there at time going, you know what? I don't got an idea, mate. What's going on? So they took drugs.
What you got? Crickets.
Or just take drugs, folks. No, don't.
Yes. Pete Johns in the studio live today. Company do not condone the taking of drugs for inspiration for songwriting.
Well, there's the thing, Pete. So you can't even do that anymore. See, it was a different time in the 70s where people were taking LSD and expanding their mind and stuff. These days, if you go and do something like that, you don't know what you're getting. You could end up on fentanyl or all these crazy things. So it's made it incredibly harder for people to, because some of the best music came out from people experimenting, not only with like the way they play music, but altering their minds. Is it the right thing or wrong thing? That's up to you and your moral compass to decide. But these days you can't. Like, could you imagine writing a song after taking flacker?
Not only can't I imagine it, I don't even know what it is because I'm very sweet and innocent.
It turns you into a zombie, Pete, and you eat people's faces. It's not a really good drug.
It sounds charming, and a shout out to the poor folks who work in as EMTs and in the medical industry that have to spend their time, instead of dealing with cancer patients and people that have been in horrible accidents, they have to stop someone from scratching their own eyeballs out after an overdose. Anyway,
yes,
there you go. There's a song. Use that. Like if maybe that's a song for you right there. You can talk about
Flacka
Flacka Dacka. You heard it here first, folks. One of the ideas, but before we move on, we're coming towards the end here. I know you want to talk, you want to chat with us for a long time. I've got a couple of questions here from folks that are here live that we'll answer at the end of the show in the little Q&A section. But if you're watching the replay and you're here on YouTube, drop your comments down below. I'll be down there. Jade will be down there. We can answer your questions there. If you're listening to the podcast version, where are you? Come. We do all these live shows. We do shows all the time over on our channels. So come over here to Pete Johns, studiolivetoday.com, Jade Starr at jadestar with 2Rs.com.au. So, one thing that I use is a speed thinking. I learnt this in the corporate world.
I love
If you're absolutely stuck, do some speed thinking. All you got to do is stick 60 seconds on a timer and get a word, a topic, a thing. Look around your room. I'd go like water bottle. And I'd go, right, I'm going to use water bottle. And then you set 60 seconds and you go, right, water bottle, hydration, fountain. Oh, fountain. What else has water? Sprinklers. Oh, the sprinklers. Sprinklers, summertime, grass growing. Just do that. And something's going to come out of that. A few words are going to come out, and it's kind of tapping into your subconscious. And then you can sort of start. And then, hey, go to your AI. Combine these tips. Go to ChatGPT and say, write me an idea for a song that incorporates these 10 words. And see what it does. And then you and the robots are making music, beautiful music together. How do you avoid? We've talked about this actually. You answered this in one of our own questions about space, but how to avoid overwriting and keeping things simple, which just go back to the talk of space and letting yourself breathe and having that.
That's the one time you should be critical of yourself. And I'm a big fan of that. Like, be critical at that point when you've written a song, it's all coming down, you're recording it, go back. And be critical on the parts. Do I actually need that in there? Is this a vanity metric for myself? Very important stuff because, a lot of the time, if you remove that stuff, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to know. It's like the same thing as like nobody goes and buys a song and then goes, oh, I don't know, I like that song. Then I found out you recorded it using an Arturia mini fuse. Nah, not the case. So, people aren't going to miss it.
Yep. No, agreed. Yeah, sometimes, as you've said, we'll mention it again, but it's like EQ. Sometimes it's what you take away, not what you put in. You don't want to boost everything. Sometimes you need to remove things to let the other things there shine. I like this from Stillella. He says, a fun exercise, right from a different point of view. I recently wrote a song from the point of view of a psychedelic drug to the person being affected. There you go. Get in the brain of the drug instead of just talking about the situation. And Ben Folds, who is one of my favorite songwriters and an amazing dude, I was lucky enough to see one of his tours where I got to do like a meet and greet, and he talked for about an hour about songwriting, and he said exactly this. He said a lot of people come to him and say, man, you've lived a weird and wacky life, but judging by all your songs. And he's like, very few of them are autobiographical. I almost always write about a character. I make up a character. I see someone when I'm out people watching, and that's the character I write about. He's like, I think Brick's about the only song that I've written that is actually about me. Everything else is just made up characters and fictional stories. So, yeah.
The songs about women are normally him because he's been through a few women.
Well, yeah, there's probably the "give me my money back, you be," and then
he's got problems with girls.
I threw my phone into a pool. He's had a few relationships. And a few
he's had some stalkers.
Yeah, maybe don't follow Ben exactly with everything he's done. We love you, Ben. All right. How do you know when you're done, Jade? How do you know when you can put a cork in it, when you can tie a ribbon around it and not just keep changing, adding, developing? I know we talked about before that sometimes you might want to change something up because you're singing it live and another word works well. We're not talking that, but how do you not have a notebook full of 99% written songs that you've never actually completed and produced?
Create, record, release. Try and get it out. I'm the worst person for this because at the same time I've been baking this album for the longest time, but in the meantime I've still continued to release other stuff while I hold on to this thing. And this is something that I've been talking about a lot lately with getting over, because the lyrics still are changing as with this album that's been going on for 14 years now. And it's got to the point now where I don't even want to release it because it's just going to be a blip on the radar and nobody's going to care about it the next day. So, and I care about it so much that I just like the fact now that it's not released, and I still am releasing stuff. Look, you just got to. It's going to change regardless. Even if you finish it, it's going to change. You can't stop it because the more you play it after it's out, you're going to change.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You're going to change. You can't stop progress. You're going to grow and change. You get different ideas. Your voice is going to change, the way you sing, and you may not be able to hit those notes anymore the way you recorded it. So you will, hopefully, if you're paying attention to people who teach singing and stuff, if you can't hit the note anymore, don't.
Yeah.
Change it. Make it so you can hit the note. Nobody's going to sit there at the gig going, oh, it's not singing exactly the same. In fact, more people who go to gigs don't want to hear the same way it's recorded. They want
Exactly.
something different because they're paying an exorbitant amount of money for T-shirts and stuff. They can go home and listen to the original recording. So it's actually a good idea to change things up and keep it fresh for your own brain too.
Yep.
So just yeah. What was
Yep.
the question again?
Yeah, no. Just how
Did
do you
I
know when
answer
you're
it?
done? How do you just finish a song as opposed to writing a whole bunch of partially written songs? And I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that even when you're finished, you're probably not finished, but you can release at some point. And yeah, like I wrote a song called Anxiety a while ago, which is one of my favorite songs and a lot of people relate to. And I sing that very differently now because
Yes.
7 years later, I can't hit the woo notes. So I just change it up and it's very interesting. And do I look back on that and wish I'd written some lyrics slightly differently or recorded it slightly differently? Of course, but you're always going to have that. But it becomes a cool time capsule. That's the thing. If you never finish anything, you can never see your progress over time. It's the same with
Yeah.
songwriting. It's the same with anything in life. And as we always say, and as our friend Brad loves this saying too, he made me design a T-shirt with it on there. Practice makes progress.
Yep.
And the more you practice this and everything in life, the better you get. It's not rocket science. You're not going to be great immediately. You're going to work at it. It takes a long time to become an overnight success. So, yeah, the two key takeaways from this should be it depends because it will be different for everyone based on what you do. And you just got to try it. Keep practicing at it, keep doing it, and you'll be good to go. I'm just ending the poll here because we did ask a poll question at the start about whether you write lyrics or music first. I'll reveal the answer to that in a moment. We are going to finish off by asking this question that came in from our friend Clayton Von Kluge. What are some of the most memorable lyrics on your own songs and maybe songs that are classics by the greats? So are there any lyrics that you've written, first and foremost, Jade, that stick in your head that you're the most proud of? And then what's kind of your favourite lyric that, if you can think of any off the top of your head, that you've heard in other people's songs?
So I have 3 songs of mine that I've written that I just every time I sing them, I'm so proud of the lyrics. One of them is it's called Exquisite Pain because it's there's a lot of lyrics in there and they just make they're so deep. I really like when I am able to hit songs that are deep. Do What Makes You Happy is the other one. It just says everything I needed to say. And the other one is Truth. Truth is probably the best lyrical song I've ever written. But then if you go across the scale for me, I've got FMC on the other end, which is like some of the most grotesque and ridiculous lyrics ever that you could you don't want to hear. They're so vile, but they are smutty limericks. That's the concept behind FMC. People
Yep.
think that it's just like, oh, you're just trying to be shocking. But it's like, no, the whole concept is based on that childish limerick of the man from Nantucket, just a more savage death metal version of that. It's like taking the comedy to another level. But yeah, those 3 songs, Truth for me, just when you write a song and you read those lyrics back, you go, I'm never going to be able to write something like this again. This sums up every single thing. Like, how am I going to top it? And it's been hard to do that. The Fight, which I did recently, was another one which I'm pretty proud of, but it was very simple, very simplified, different kind of songwriting. Lyrics that other artists have. Oh, it's hard, that one,
It is, isn't
because
it?
I
Yeah.
listen to a lot of obscure stuff. I listen to a lot of stuff that like Mr. Bungle and Frank Zappa and really obscure stuff like John Zorn. My music and a lot of stable stuff as well. A lot of death metal, so the lyrics are very grotesque. It's hard. I'm more a I don't know. I'm lyrics don't. There are certain
Yeah.
songs,
Don't
Counting
stick.
Crows. Let me say, Counting Crows. All Counting Crows lyrics, for some reason, resonate with me so much. There's so
Yep.
much. What it is about Counting Crows for me is all his lyrics tell a story, and they all interconnect through albums with past songs and past girls who he's sung about and places he's been. So if you've heard an album 3 albums ago, this album has some song that there's so many callbacks and you feel like you're a part of the ecosystem with Counting
Yep.
Crows. I love that. I love it's like the nostalgia with video games. I love the nostalgia of Counting Crows and the way they continue to bring back the moments there's one song in particular, not Anna Begins, Goodnight Elizabeth, where he mentions several girls' names, and it's a huge callback how they all tie together. I just love that stuff. That's
Creating their
beautiful.
own world, their own lyrical universe. It's like the
Yeah,
MCU,
it's
but
the
for
Marvel
lyrics.
universe. Yeah.
Very cool stuff indeed. For me, I mean, I mentioned anxiety. I like that because it wrote that very much from the heart and through my own experiences. That is autobiographical, and a lot of people, sadly, have had similar experiences and relate to that. So that's probably my one that I think of my lyrics. But yeah, I've written a lot of songs that are very meaningful to me. And it's cool. Like I say, it's like a time capsule going back over time. I know how I felt at that time when I wrote those words. And that's one of the cool things that lyrics can do. They can connect you to an emotion, a feeling, and a time and place in space that you remember. And it can take you back there. That nostalgia thing again. And my favorite lyricists is the band Tool. Maynard from Tool writes some amazing lyrics.
Clever
And
stuff.
my favorite Tool song, I think it's called Hooker with a Penis. And it's about how they sold out, how their fans from their first EP, and I'll read a little bit of this to you here. It's I met a boy wearing Vans 501s and a dope Beastie Boys, nipple rings, new tattoos that claimed that he was OGT from 92 from the first EP. And between sips of Coke, he told me that he thought we were selling out, laying down, sucking up to the man. And then the chorus. Well, I've got some advice for you, little buddy. Before you point your finger, you should know that I'm the man. I'm the man and you're the man and he's the man as well. So you can point your effing finger up your ass. And I just find every time I listen to that song, it tells me, it says so much about the music
not holding
industry.
back, is it?
It talks about fanboys. It is intense and it's Tool. So you got the drums going everywhere. You got the music
And his
behind it
voice,
the power.
man.
And his voice,
You
Maynard, one of
can't
the
recreate that
greatest
voice.
lyricists of all
Can
time.
I say, Pete, on your music, there's the thing. Like, it's interesting with you because you share so much of your process with all of us, and you allow us to contribute to your process, lyrics, ideas, compression, the structure of the song. You put notepads up and take people's ideas, and so it's a very interesting process that we get to be a part of. And I know where your heart lies, and what you write is very real. And you don't necessarily say that stuff here on your channel because there's enough people with opinions in this world, and I think if more people wrote lyrics about how they were feeling and put it in songs than getting on a soapbox and yelling at people that this is how you should think, we'd be in a better place. But I'd love to come back. We should do another show because I think we've touched on this today. How important is melody over lyrics? Because the one thing which I'm sure many people who are subscribers of your channel is you have this innate ability to throw a hook and God damn you, Pete, to hell. That hook will stay in my head for weeks on end. Even people who've lived in my house have just gone, can you stop? It's like Pete Johns, you have an incredible ability to put a melody that you just can't get out. It's like poison. It's a really important thing and hard to do. So many artists miss the mark with hooks, and less these days. Hooks are used. Everything's kind of like, we'll just try a different style of vocal here instead of just a guaranteed hook. So hooks would be an interesting to talk about melodies because it's hard.
Well, we have talked about this, that doing these double features are great fun. And again, for those that are listening just on the podcast version, you have missed out because we've had some amazing interaction here from the live folks here who have been in the chat. So do join us when we do these. Jade does an interview with all sorts of amazing and interesting creators every single Friday morning or Thursday afternoon or evening, depending where you are in the world. So make sure you are subscribed to her channel and over there on the YouTubes. I'm going to let you say your final words here, Jade, and then I'm going to finish off, but in the words of Jade Starr. So this is going to be an interesting closeout to this week's podcast. So, Jade, do you have any parting words for the wonderful folks listening in here about lyrics and some final tips or advice for folks getting in and writing their own lyrics?
Yeah, I do. Don't follow rules. Whatever you do, don't listen to people who tell you, even like me, don't listen to me. Follow your heart. Write from your heart. Right, even if it's ridiculous stuff that's trying to get a reaction, write from you. There is no correct way to do anything with music. In fact, some of the most amazing artists that stick with us forever and ever were the rule breakers, and we live in a world where rule breaking with music seems like such a bad thing. Everything's about product placement and following the what's going to get people listening to you. But it's the ones who take risks and stand out on a limb that are the people who, not only does it challenge your mind and keep you interested in making music, but it is also it no matter, there's people out there who will feel the same, even if it's out on a limb, but just take risks. Write things that you may not think people will be interested in, because somebody out there is going to associate with it. It's a big old world out there. And just do it.
Do it.
And enjoy the process. Be happy. Love it. And don't become a YouTube content creator, because you'll never make any music.
That's the best piece of advice I think either of us have given for the entire show is don't do what we do what we say, because as soon as you start making videos about creating music, you're going to create a whole lot less. All right. That is going to do it for this one, folks. I normally have a little phrase I say at the end, which is kind of a bit like lyric writing. It's my own little catchphrase, but I'm going to say something different this week, and I need Jade to be quiet because I'm going to close out with some Jade Starr lyrics instead of my usual thing. And it's from the song Truth. And it goes like this. How can anybody hate the joy of love between two human beings? Diversity is strength and not a weakness we should be teaching. Life's become so valueless, our children die in wars that have no meaning. Blinded by corruption, there's no value in the money that we're seeking. Stand up. It's never too late to change your life. Just speak the truth. And we all can be finally be free to fly. Good night, folks.